Welcome back, everybody. We're now going to create some charts based upon our data. Because we've got a large amount of data, what we're going to do is we're going to actually create a pivot chart. Now, you can do this from the Insert menu where you create the pivot chart from scratch. But what we're going to do is we're going to do it based upon an existing pivot table. Because I've already got the data I want in my chart here, so I'm going to make it on a pivot table. So instead of clicking on Insert, we're actually going to go up to Pivot Table Analyze up here. So this is a context menu that appears when you clicked on the pivot table. You see it's not there, and then when I click on the pivot table Analyze comes up. And I'm going to click on Pivot Chart. And it's going to give me a suggestion of what chart I think it thinks I might want. And I can choose all sorts of charts like this, and I can just sort of click. And what I want to do is make sure that this is meaningful. So if I click on the area chart, that doesn't really tell me anything. There's no smooth grade up. I can click on this 3D chart, but it doesn't actually tell me anything. So perhaps a bar chart would be better. And then I click on OK, and look, it just inserts it here. Now the cool thing about this pivot table is I can then filter that down like so, and it will adjust the chart based upon the data I select. Now, if I adjust the original pivot table, so for example, if I want their embarkation point as a column, you can see it automatically updates the pivot chart. So now we can see their embarkation, and in fact, if I haven't done it yet, if I update the data sources, I can actually use embarking port like that, and then we get our nice little helpful graph here. So sorry, key rather, not graph. So what I can do is I can also change this around. So I can do this for male and female, and perhaps that's more meaningful. As well as with the pivot chart and mucking it around in terms of where the data is, you can also change the design of the chart. So you can add chart layout elements like titles and data tables. So I can have a data table underneath like this, which makes it nice. And I can also click on some elements, like for example if I don't want the key, and I can just hit the delete key and then the key will vanish. So this is a really nice way to get a chart together, and we can then see exactly what is going on. Now some charts are going to really be a meaningful representation of the data, and others will just be seemingly nonsense. So you've really got to be aware of what it is that you're trying to show. You can also manipulate charts to produce things like gauges. I'm going to show you that now. So I am going to take a copy of this sheet because it's already got most of what I want, and I'm going to say move or copy, and I am going to say create a copy. You see it's got pivot table 2. I can now edit this and say gender balance. So I'm going to click on my pivot table, and I am going to remove the embarking port. I don't want that. And I'm going to change the chart type. So up to the design of the chart, and I am probably going to change the chart type here, and I'm going to change it to a bar chart, and I'm going to change it like so. So what you can see here is this is a proportion chart, so it's showing male versus female. And if you'll forgive the slightly traditional overtone, but to make it clearer, I could change the fill for the series female to be a sort of pinkish colour. So I'm not entirely sure that I agree with this, but it does make the chart a little easier to interpret. And then this side blue. I can add a chart element, and I could have data labels, and I can put the labels into here. That's fine. Or I'm just doing it for the one thing now. So add chart element, data labels. So I can actually put the numbers on the chart like that. And then I can experiment with putting the other things on here. I could get rid of the data table like so, and I could add, where's it gone? I want my legend, right? So I could add the legend at the bottom like this, just to make it obvious what I'm going on about. So now it's quite easy to read that. You can edit all sorts of things about these charts. So I'm producing more and more and more of these pivot tables. So I could call this one gender and port. And I'm going to move these to after basic statistics, like so. There are all kinds of data things you can produce. I'll try and do a video later on some of the varieties, but we can now start to make our dashboard. So I'm going to create another new sheet. I'm going to move it to the front, and I'm going to call it dashboard. Now, one of the things I might want to do is I want to select the whole sheet like this, and then I'm going to colour it in white. That gets rid of the grid lines, so it looks a little bit more official. And I could then put in data dashboard. Now this is intended for display, so we want to make it nice, so I'm going to use a different font. I'm going to make that font nice and big to make it readable, and then I might put in another title, which is basic stats. Again, put that into another font, make it slightly bigger. Hang on a minute, do that. Make it slightly bigger, and then I can come onto my basic statistics sheet. So what I can do is I can actually link this through here. If I say equals basic statistics, like so, and then I can put in some ideas like this. Now, because this is a table, I might want to then put in some borders, so I might put some boxes around that. And then I'm just going to delete these zeros because they look a little bit on the ugly side. That's because there's nothing in those cells. And you can see we are starting to getting a nice little looking data dashboard in here. Now maybe I want to copy that, and then I'm going to paste that down here, and I'm going to say gender balance. And I'm going to go to my gender balance screen. I'm going to grab this chart, and then I'm going to come back to the dashboard, and I am going to paste the chart there. Obviously I can edit this as I want to make it look so that it fits in with the rest of the sheet. Now I might also want to put other things for port and gender over here. I might want to have lots of different types of chart, like pie charts and that kind of thing. And when we zoom out, you'll see it starts to form quite a professional looking thing. Now you can also do other little things in here. So for example, you've got first, second and third class, and I could add in some conditional formatting, data bars like this. So I'm adding behind my figures almost like a little graph within the cell, so that it makes the data more understandable, more visually appealing. I hope that's given you some ideas. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to mock up your own Titanic data dashboard. I want you to put lots of information on here. Find out what's interesting. See what it is that actually tells a story about who survived on the Titanic and why that may be. You've got all the data at your fingertips. Now go and find out what it really means. I look forward to seeing what you can submit. If you have any problems, as ever, just send me an email.